Hello, and welcome to episode 34 of Desert Fathers with Bishop Erik Varden. I'm Jamie Baxter from Exodus 90, and it's a privilege to journey with you as we continue our trek into the desert. We're meditating this month on the 7th chapter of the systematic collection of the Desert Fathers on fortitude. Last week, we heard about how the sayings of the Fathers are not to be taken out of context or read in isolation. As we reflect upon the sayings, we must remember that they were words spoken from one person to another and seeking to support their participation in God's particular providence. But the sayings unite in their emphasis on the need to persevere in the practice of fortitude as we endure the challenges of human life. One such struggle that we may know well or are likely to know at some point in the future is the suffering caused by natural sickness. Understandably, sickness can bring discouragement. How are we to let go of the nostalgia for who we were or what we may have become had sickness not visited us? How are we to love who we are now and to seek who we can still become through our cross-shaped constraints? With that, I'll hand it over to Bishop Varden as we read and meditate on a saying from Amma Syncletica. This is episode 34 of Desert Fathers, Living with Infirmity.
Blessed Syncletica said, "Should we be troubled by illness, let us not be downcast if, because of illness or our stricken body, we cannot stand upright, praying, or sing psalms aloud. All these things were given us in order to accomplish the purification of our desires. Fasting and sleeping on the floor were prescribed for us on account of the attractions of shameful pleasures. If sickness blunts these, the exercises turn out to be superfluous. Why do I say superfluous? Because our destructive tendencies are calmed by sickness as if by a greater, more powerful remedy. This is the really great ascesis, to hold out patiently in sickness and to bring forth hymns of thanksgiving to the Almighty. Is eyesight taken from us? Let us not be weighed down. We may lose the physical organs of greed, but with our inward eyes we see the glory of the Lord as in a mirror. Are we turning deaf? Let us give thanks that we are made inaccessible once for all to vain chatter. Are our hands limp? Our inward hands are no less well prepared for battle against the enemy. Is our body fully in the grip of exhaustion? The inner man will know an increase of good health. In Butler's Lives of the Saints, the career of Amma Syncletica is summarized concisely. We're told that she gave herself to God at a young age, that she joined a community where she was in demand as a spiritual mother and guide. Then, that she foretold her own death, which took place about the year 400, when she was 80, after terrible sufferings, borne with exemplary patience. The oldest source of the story of her life, a text long wrongly attributed to Athanasius, is more specific about Syncletica's old age. It tells us that she suffered for 3.5 years from a horrible degenerative disease, possibly some kind of cancer for which there was no cure. It seems worthwhile to mention this aspect of her biography, for it lets us see that when Syncletica spoke of illness, she spoke of what she knew. It's easy and strangely alluring to hold forth on the stature of physical pain when one has not known it much, but such discourse sounds hollow. The saying before us, by contrast, is very dense. To be a spiritual champion, freely embracing hardships, deprivations, vigils, and fasts, engages our noble aspirations. A psalm of David begins with the cry, "Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war, my fingers for battle." In St. Benedict's arrangement of the Psalter, laid down in the Rule, this psalm is sung at Vespers on a Friday, the day on which we commemorate Christ's Passion. A line is drawn between the Lord's sacrifice and the monk's ascetic battle, inspiring a powerful sense of purpose and a noble pride in being conscripted for service. This is a good, formative experience, yet does not spell full configuration to Jesus' oblation, for our ego remains engaged, channeling our energies profitably while enjoying a degree of satisfaction. It is a joyful thing to pour oneself out freely for love. The chances are then that the time will come when we receive a call like the one addressed to Peter on the shore of the Sea of Tiberias. "Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you girded yourself and walked where you would. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will gird you and carry you where you do not wish to go." Will we then follow trustfully, still generous and loving, or will we rebel? The encounter with sickness or imposed constraints may reveal that we were not as advanced in discipleship as we had assumed. Amma Syncletica stresses the nature of ascetic practice as a means to an end. It is important to keep this distinction in mind. The point of monastic life is not interrupted sleep, scarce eating, or long hours of psalmody. The point is acquisition through Christ's grace of the perfect love that casts out fear in purity of heart. The Lord who calls us is free to choose whatever means he deems effective to open our hearts, bodies, and minds to this great gift. An infirmity or injury, a serious diagnosis, that may at first make us feel as if we were struck down by destiny, can turn out to be, in fact, a provision made by a kind, yet nonetheless cross-shaped, providence. It fills one with reverence to see misfortune received in this way, in a spirit of faith, gently, without bitterness. Each trial has its corresponding grace. We shall find that grace if we look for it. We shall be fit to look for it if we learn that for those who love God, all things work together for good. All things. Job's question, shall we receive the good at the hand of God and not receive the bad, does not spring from stoic toughness. It reminds us that the apparently bad, born in faith, will lead to some ulterior good. Amma Syncletica's point about blindness makes me think of a scene towards the end of Integrate Silence, Philipp Gröning's predominantly silent film from 2005 about La Grande Chartreuse, the mother house of the Carthusians. A blind monk in a testimony lets us sense his initial discomfiture when he saw his sight was failing. Then he says, "Now I often thank God for making me blind. He did it for the good of my soul. Physical blindness had sharpened his inward view of God's essential goodness, making him see that all God allows is somehow helpful, preparing us for that solemn moment when all our lives' attempts to say yes to God's designs will come together in the final abandonment of death, which, that same monk insists, should be a joyful surrender. That's how to live and die.
Blessed Syncletica said, "Should we be troubled by illness, let us not be downcast if, because of illness or our stricken body, we cannot stand upright praying or sing psalms aloud. All these things were given us in order to accomplish the purification of our desires. Fasting and sleeping on the floor were prescribed for us on account of the attraction of shameful pleasures. If sickness blunts these, the exercises turn out to be superfluous. Why do I say superfluous? Because our destructive tendencies are calmed by sickness, as if by a greater, more powerful remedy. This is the really great ascesis, to hold out patiently in sickness and to bring forth hymns of thanksgiving to the Almighty. Is eyesight taken from us? Let us not be weighed down. We may lose the physical organs of greed, but with our inward eyes we see the glory of the Lord as in a mirror. Are we turning deaf? Let us give thanks that we are made inaccessible once for all to vain chatter. Are our hands limp? Our inward hands are no less well prepared for battle against the enemy. Is our body fully in the grip of exhaustion? The inner man will know an increase of good health. Amma Syncletica offers these words to us from her personal experience of sickness. When sickness visits us, may we be given the grace to remember that everything is unfolding for our greatest good before God. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode. If you have been blessed by the podcast, please share it with a friend. Visit desertfathers.com to subscribe to our email newsletter and to submit a question to Bishop Varden for our next Q&A. Desert Fathers is brought to you by Exodus 90, produced by EWTN, and written by Bishop Erik Varden. Brothers, join me and thousands of men from around the world in reviving an ancient devotion to St. Michael the Archangel, called St. Michael's Lent. Leading up to September 29th, traditionally the Feast of St. Michael, we will take up the practices of prayer, asceticism, and fraternity, in imitation of St. Francis of Assisi, who observes St. Michael's Lent with great devotion in his time. Download the Exodus 90 app or visit exodus90.com to learn more. All Holy Fathers and Mothers of the Desert, pray for us.